All right, well, good afternoon and welcome. This is the second part of our final, if that it makes any sense whatsoever, but the second final part of our series in surviving COVID-19. It's been a fantastic series, and I've got 5 great guests with me today who have done some fantastic vlogs in the past couple of months with us, and we've had great response from each and every one of our speakers. And so it's a nice way to sort of bookend this on a day that we released our first press release today, and you can find that at Elite Agent, just announcing 400 of our launch partners. So if you're on the internet today, check out that at Elite Agent. Homely have announced their 400 plus launch partners today. So very, very exciting. We've had a enormous positive response. So that combined with the guests today, well, I'm just in heaven, really real estate heaven, talking to these guys. Down below, you'll see the red button. That's a subscribe button for YouTube. And you can also subscribe on Spotify and also iTunes for the podcasts. Make sure you just follow homely.com.au and you'll be sure to get the vlogs, the podcasts as they drop. But today, I'm pleased to have the people with me. I've got Patrick McKinnon from Place in Brisbane. I've got Anthony Webb. I've got Jared Hill from Rain and Horn in Newtown. I've got Darren Hutchins from O'Brien's. And we've got the lovely Lee Mayer from the REIV. Great to have you guys along. Thank you so much for giving us some time today.
No worries. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
Guys, I want to touch base. We want to get straight into it. We this is the bookend to surviving COVID-19, as we just said, and we just want to go through a few of the things that we might have thought were going to happen over these last couple of months, and then really just have a bit of a look at how it actually played out. So, Pat, I might start with you because you were probably the first vlog I think that we actually did, mate. An enormous response to that one, which was really, really positive. And at the time, mate, when we first caught up, it was an interesting time. You were basically saying, Holmesy, it's about survival. If we can get a couple of deals done a week, if we can get a few things happening every month and just sort of limp through. But I think that might have changed a little bit, mate. How does it look for the last couple of months for you?
Well, you called me out, mate. I was wearing activewear and had a grizzly beard on.
Good, mate.
Mate, yeah, no, I kind of, still, it has bounced back a lot quicker than we thought. We still we had a lot of deals crash. We had a lot of, I spent, I didn't personally sell a house for 6 weeks, and I had, well over probably 5 mil fall over. And, we had, the office was extremely down, but over those 2 months, March and April, we still made money with the JobKeeper and we still got deals done. We still were actually, kept everyone employed. We stepped them back to 4 days a week, and we came out of it really well, and we've bounced back massively, which is awesome. And I still think it's not all over yet. Deals are still pretty hard to put together, but I think there's a lot of stock coming to the market in the last 4 weeks, and it's selling, so it's good.
Yeah,
awesome. Back to normal.
Yeah. Anthony, how about you? We spoke to you, and also we spoke to your dad, Philip Webb, on the day, and that was great to catch up with you guys. And that was really, really early on, and we got some really, really good positive pointers. And I think a lot of the younger officers were sort of happy to hear, from some really established names in the industry about how you were tackling it. You're an incredibly hard worker, mate. How's the last couple of months been in comparison to what perhaps you thought it might look like?
It's definitely been challenging. I think for the first 4 weeks, everyone was scrambling. After that, sort of, it became the new normal. It almost felt like there was a lull. There was nothing really happening. And over the last couple of weeks, we've really seen some momentum pick back up in our areas, which is great.
What do you put that momentum down to, mate? Is it just state of the market, or is it efforts by or combined efforts by your team?
I think it's a bit of both. I think everyone was in shell shock initially, and no one really knew what was going on. So I think our team really sat down and grounded out and started doing their prospecting, dealing with buyers and doing what they needed to do. Over the last couple of weeks, I think that things have been getting better, although there's been some changes down here in Victoria over the last 24 hours. But we've been getting some momentum, which is great, and the positivity has been good and getting some really good results.
We sort of talked about some of your guys working from home at the time, and I think you guys were surprised at the level of productivity that was coming out of your team. Have you found that level of productivity was maintained, and that's maybe changed the shape of the business a bit, or is it people happy to be back in the office and working there?
I think there's some people that are happy to be back in the office and be able to see people again. Others are rapt to still be able to be at home. So we never had a work from home policy. To go from 0 to 90% of our team working from home was a pretty big challenge. We've probably still got about 80% of our team working from home. Mainly the property managers, and we've got the sales team that are sort of coming in and out as they need to at the moment. But that's probably been one of the biggest things that we've seen, and we'd probably continue with, is allowing a little bit more flexibility, provide people for performing down the track.
Darren, you've got lots and lots of offices, mate. What did you see? Get some of your broader observations over the last couple of months.
Look, I think initially there was a fair bit of denial, and then there was a fair bit of crisis, and then we've sort of moved into that planning and opportunity phase. So I think there's plenty of opportunity out there at the moment. We're finding right across the group at the moment that our stock numbers are right down. Not to say that there's not property coming to the market. So it's now about our people getting really close with their prospective vendors and having really good quality conversations. But, to give you an idea, we had 17 auctions last week across the group. We're sitting at about a 78% clearance for the weekend. Now, there's a few of those that are still in negotiations. We've got another 17 this week. So it's picked up pretty quickly, Dave, right across the board. I think there's some offices out there that are still in a bit of denial. They're sort of denying what's happened. But I think, to reiterate what Anthony said, we've all come through this a lot better than I thought we would have 60 days ago. If we go back to, when it first hit and everything else, I think we're all sort of sitting back thinking, holy, we're in, we're in for a fair big wave coming through. But, by and large, we've come out of it pretty well.
Yeah, sure. How about you, Lee? You've got a bit of a different handle on things, large property management portfolio, and do a lot of advocacy work as well. And also I suppose, again, a broader perspective from the REIV. How have you seen things?
It's been very interesting our market is predominantly situated in Melbourne's CBD. So we have been significantly affected by the border closures, both domestic and international border closures. So we have probably a 20% vacancy rate, or nearing a 20% vacancy rate at the moment, which is very significant.
What's that up from, Lee? What was that? So 20% now, what is that up from?
0.
Wow, okay.
We had a near 0% vacancy rate. There are 120,000 international students who I believe are still trapped in China, can't get back over here. So we are genuinely affected. In saying that, our division is performing exceptionally well. So we've got a lot of landlords that are really feeling the pinch at the moment. We've had conversations with them, and we've given them some advice as to how to improve their fully furnished apartments so that when the borders do open up, that they are prepared and they are competitively placed. It will be interesting to note how many of those smaller inner real estate agents close that are only managing Airbnb type accommodation or fully furnished apartments. That's really, the COVID-19 has had a significant impact on that particular triangle or piece of the puzzle. But sales, we're performing exceptionally well. Our agents have had a great opportunity to establish deep and meaningful relationships with their buyers. Given us an opportunity to train our salespeople to speak more deeply about finance clauses and other legislative requirements. So, yeah, in some areas it's been very difficult, and in other areas we've performed very well coming out of it.
Yeah, that's quite extraordinary. I do have to just ask, how does one improve the nature of a fully furnished apartment? Is it a mini bar? Is it an espresso machine? How do you make these things even better?
New linen, new furniture, might need a paint job, all of those types of things. So yes, new mild refurbishments. Time to go shopping at IKEA.
Okay. It is the 1%. It's making your product even more attractive to the marketplace, I suppose, isn't it?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Jared, in West Sydney in Newtown, what's your observations?
Well, I think a bit like what Anthony said before, it was a whole heap of panic, not knowing exactly what was going to happen, and then you've got the government coming out with these grand announcements, and then not supporting it with legislation. So for about the first sort of month, it was like, what the hell's going to happen? And then people paused, took a breath, when you started working through the problems that you had. So the rental reductions, they weren't nearly as bad as what we thought they were going to be. Commercial's been hit hardest, obviously. But residentially, we had a lot of people coming at us, and then when we asked for information and proof about it, a lot of those people sort of disappeared. So, what was happening early on, I think it took a time for people to just sit down, relax, and draw a breath. So moving forward to now, it's actually pretty stable. So the rental market, there's lots of activity, lots of churn. I think I said to you earlier on that last June we did have 39 new leases signed out of our office. So far this June we've got 71. So there's a lot of churn, which
Wow.
work, but it's sort of settled down in the sales market. We're probably doing more transactions now than we were before.
Yeah.
I think this whole COVID, it changed the conversations you had with people. It changed the conversations you had with your database, and it wasn't a matter of what do they want to do. It was about how are they and what are they up to, and people's motivation to sell and to buy, that was still there. It's reliant upon their circumstances, not what the market's doing. So it was just about adjusting to that, understanding it, and just pushing forward. So it's generally been pretty good. I don't think that, if I'm going to be cautious, I think that when the stimulus runs out, we might have another bit of a panic on, and that's something we're looking forward to at the moment. So, but generally it's been pretty good. So we've had a bit of a drop in management fees, not much drop in sales. We've increased letting fees. So business has been fine.
Have you seen a bit of a drop in the rental returns? We had one of our guests on last week was talking about Piermont in Sydney there, talking about, rentals that have dropped from around sort of $1,100 a week to, for an example, sort of $850, $900 a week. Very, very significant drops of rental returns. Have you seen that sort of thing as well, Jerry?
Yeah, look, we have. We've seen that in the high end because the high end's probably been affected more so than the lower end. Properties that were affordable then are still affordable now. But the high end, yes, we saw a drop. And we probably won't see the impacts of that on our business for about another probably 4 or 5 months when the letting fees start to change. But whilst we're doing so much activity in leasing, it's more than compensating what we've dropped in management fees.
And is it reflective of the value of the properties, or is it actually a direct rental return hit?
It's no direct rental return. It's drops in rents. So, and in saying that, we're getting some that, they're offering more. So it just depends on the property. So good property is always good property and it performs. You only got to look at prestige market. It's still performing.
Especially when they're being upgraded by one of Lee's teams with the new gear in there, the apartments.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to open it up a little bit here and just sort of say what were one of the, what one of the real eye-openers for any of your businesses here? What was one of the things that sort of took you by surprise and you might have now built a bit of a strategy or an efficiency in your business through this that you think, hey, regardless of what happens with COVID, this is something we're going to continue well into the future, whether it's culture, whether it's systems, whether it's tech, anything at all?
I'll go if you want.
Please, yeah.
I think one of the things that we all struggled with down here was there was so much of a lack of information coming through, in the early days from the government across to Consumer Affairs, across to Consumer Affairs, which is Office of Fair Trading, I think up in New South Wales. But, there was a lack of information. There was so much crisis going on and no one knew what was going on. And I think, if I sit back and look at the people that have probably struggled the most through this whole period, and I think you back me up on this, Lee, is our property managers. Just the uncertainty of what they can do and when they can do it and how they go about it. And there hasn't been, like the REIV, to their credit, have been absolutely fantastic. When the information's finally come through, they've passed it on. But, like we had a situation here at Easter on a Thursday night before Good Friday that we didn't know whether we could do opens. We didn't know whether we could do inspections. We didn't know what we could do. And there was just that lack of information feeding through.
Confused information, wasn't it, Darren?
Oh, it was horrible. It was confused information, and it was just so much white water. And I actually feel sorry for the property managers. They're the ones that have probably had to deal with so much through this whole thing. And even now there's still uncertainty around how they can get people out of properties and what they can do. And that's probably one thing that's been had a real effect, I believe, on the industry here in Victoria.
Yeah. I think that retrospective legislation as well was something that was a huge challenge.
Agreed.
We had the situation that a code of conduct came out for commercial real estate. So about the 23rd, they said that you've got to shut down all your restaurants, bars, clubs and coffee shops. Then probably 2 weeks later, the federal government announced the commercial code of conduct. It was another 2 weeks on the 24th of April before New South Wales had that in legislation. So we went for a month with people having no income, but yet they're not entitled to relief. And they were coming at us hard and fast, as you can imagine. And I agree with you. I think that the government's response has been good, but what they haven't helped real estate agents a lot. And the same thing was happening with us with the Real Estate Institute in New South Wales. Every day was a different update. So,
it's same as Queensland, mate. It was we were sitting there thinking we couldn't do opens because the ROIQ put out something, and then next minute you check realestate.com and agents have put up open times, and then 10 minutes later we're on the phone and they're retracting that statement, and then we're doing opens again. But the confusion for us, and we look like almost idiots to your clients, like you don't even know as an agent, so it's pretty difficult. Hard to run
from an auction perspective too. I mean, I think the broadest thought or opinion was that auctions had been cancelled. We very much moved to an online auction, but it was widely thought that auctions were banned and illegal right around the place. So.
Even like when you say, is it 6 people plus the auctioneer and the agent? Is it 6 people? Like, is it 10 at the open home plus the agent? And can you have 2 agents at the? Just so confusing.
Credit to the REIs for being on the spot, though. They did put out a lot of information and incredibly ambiguous coming from the government, obviously. So it was very hard.
We even had a situation on the weekend, but we're at 12 o'clock on a Saturday, this weekend just gone, group gatherings no more than 10. So all of a sudden, as an industry, we're sitting back thinking, well, can we now do auctions with 10, or is it 20, or where's it at? Admittedly and luckily it hasn't changed, and the numbers have stayed what they are. But I don't think there's been a great deal of common sense here in Victoria from a government perspective. And I love him, Webby. Have a look at him; he's smiling there. But where's the common sense? You can't have a group gathering of 10, but you can have 20 through an open or 20 at an auction. So it's there's just so many things to get your head around.
Yeah.
There is. Let's not get
and
too much.
I would suggest, Darren, that Consumer Affairs Victoria, when they were relaying some of that information through to members of the calling for direct communication, that advice was differing depending on who picked up the phone as well. So I think Consumer Affairs Victoria's got a great deal to answer for in relation to their interpretation of the omnibus emergency legislation and how they were then able to disseminate that information. I've got to say though, I think the Real Estate Institute of Victoria did a brilliant job on behalf of its members in relation to putting that information out for us. I can't speak to the other REIs, but I think that the government, and even at a federal position where we had Scott Morrison suggesting that people would have a rental holiday, and then all of a sudden we got the rental strike websites opening up. It was a really frightening time, and I think it falls to the government to take some genuine responsibility for that.
Guys, I don't want to make this a political vlog. We could run down the wrong road if I'm not careful. But very clearly, was there anything, as I asked earlier, was there anything that sort of stood out as an eye-opener that, as I say, you've changed, or it's made you really pivot as a business?
I think for us, definitely the adaptation and grabbing onto technology has been something that has I think real estate typically is quite slow to embrace technology. Yes. So I think it's something as we're scrambling and looking at how we can make our systems work within the office, you're having to make things work. And the way that our team has embraced those sorts of things and embraced new legislation, I think says a lot about the people that are working, not just in property management, but sales and even the admin teams within the offices as well. I think that's for me the biggest thing that I saw is everyone just sort of rolled up their sleeves and did what they needed to do.
One particular piece of tech or process or system that you implemented there, Anthony, that was a standout?
I think having meetings like this on Zoom, sales meetings, one-on-ones, team meetings, it's just been a great way while people are sitting at home to be able to bring them together and really work through. I mean, sharing screens and just be able to do training has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Pat, you were going to say something there?
Probably database, which you and me touched on when we were going into it, to come out of it with a really clean database, and we've definitely done that. We've spoken to pretty much every person in my database and my other team in their individual silos as well. But I think we've definitely come out of it with an amazing buyer pool. We've got a whole bunch of people that we have this most amazing relationships with, and picking up the phone and buyers are just so easy to react rather than chasing them. They're just constantly there for you, and you're just having better conversations and getting them through more houses. I think we've definitely come out of it stronger from that regard. That's
one of the interesting things that's been an underlying theme with all of our vlogs. with people just returning to Real Estate Basics 101. It is that human interaction, back to cleaning up your databases, back to prospecting, building quality, in-depth relationships with everyone in your farm area. It has been quite amazing. And even, people like Tracy Dixon, just loving the fact that a lot of the buyers they are working with were now really qualified buyers, and actually just sort of going back to that very, very personalised service. Her comment was, buyers are the new black, which I kind of liked. But it was really nice to sort of see that very human interaction. Did you all see that in your businesses as well? Very much a return to that style of service?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. People want to hear from you voice to voice. They want to establish a relationship. They want the relationship maintained. It really has gone to show that human touch and interaction is so absolutely required. Even if you're sending out emails, they have to always take into consideration that human and that emotional element. Absolutely.
Guys, silver linings. I want to talk about that. What are some of the opportunities that you've identified through this process? Pat, I know, I follow most of you guys on social media, but so you've actually employed some people.
Getting much out of me.
That's true, actually, Jared. Suspiciously quiet, I would say. But Pat, I know that you guys hired some new sales guys or some new agents and key agents as well for your team. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, we had a couple of people come on, one just before when it was kind of starting and one through the middle of it. And he sold, and again, like, I think there's all these different models out there at the moment with work from home and all this, but I can tell you now, we all wanted to get back to the office as quick as we could because it's a culture that we love. And, as a principal, Drew Davies, my business partner, Drew's been working on, he just moved his office down to the boardroom table on Racecourse Road because just waving at people all day. But, the best part about what we were through the whole of COVID is we were just there for our team and we were out listing, we were out selling and helping them do so much stuff. And they've come out of it so strong. Like we're dropping, like I was just personally, I've done 6 million in the last few days and probably another 4 million under negotiation. So 10 mil a week. And hopefully, the office is going to bounce back. We'll be back to normal, you know what I mean? And it all comes from the hard work we did through COVID. And those relationships, all those listings coming on because there's so much optimism right now in the market. And our guys are flying. These guys have changed brands and have, 7 listings, 8 listings online this week and sold 3 last week. So that, you would think that it's the worst time to change business through something like that. But I probably think it was the best time because they got to spend time making those calls, getting everything ready to when, optimism came back. And look at us now, we're out selling away.
So would that be one of the silver linings for everyone from a recruitment point of view? Are your businesses such beacons to the industry where people are actually going, I want to be with a forward thinking or a more progressive or a more agile, more nimble brand? Is that some of the things that we're experiencing there, Darren?
Yeah, Dave, I tend to agree 100% with Pat on that. I pulled most of our guys back in the office Easter Tuesday. We've got a big office here and we've got plenty of space. So we just found that they were wanting that connection. They were wanting a bit of vitamin C, vitamin connect. And the other thing is, the people in the community are wanting that connection as well. So 100% agree with what's been said there. We've been recruiting very well because, there's a fair push across the industry, as Pat mentioned, for these work from home models. But, it's pretty bloody boring sitting in your bedroom on a computer when, not much is happening. And I just found, especially with our sales guys, they wanted to be around each other and drive each other. And, we've got, this week we had 3 sessions back in at our corporate office of training. We're planning on having 50 in a room as per the regulations that then changed with Josh Fegan. And our guys have just been chomping at the bit to get back to normality. And right across the whole group, property management, sales, admin, there's a real feeling that they just want to get back to normality. And
human connection.
Absolutely. The vitamin C, vitamin connect. And even so, Dean and I were having a conversation at 7 o'clock this morning. What are we going to do about training on Thursday? Do we can it? Do we play on? So we've actually stripped it back to groups of 20. And, we've just really honed in on what we need. And, the numbers are pretty much all booked up for 4 sessions.
Is that mandatory for the guys to attend those training sessions, or is it best in or first in, best dressed?
We've made it first in, best dressed.
Wow.
And, it's certainly not mandatory. But one thing I will say with our guys, we've got a real learn it all culture. And, when we put on a Josh Figan training session, which we have monthly. We've had Josh every week, up to twice and 3 times a week through the last 3 months in Zoom meetings. But we just find that, you know, our guys are all in with Josh, and they've got that real want to learn mentality. So, you know, it's interesting. They want to get back to normal.
But without taking away from Josh's training, is there any sort of key messages that you guys have been wanting to promote to the team, or any key training areas that you've really promoted?
That we have?
Yeah.
It's really been around what Pat said, getting back to having really good, genuine conversations with your clients, clean up your database, you know, get your structures right, and be one thing that we've really put in place is human first, agent second. So we've had a real focus on being that human over just being a real estate agent that wants something out of the transaction.
Yeah. Okay. Lee, you've got a bit of a dual lens, I suppose, from the RAIV as well as your business, Urban Property in Melbourne. What have you seen from both those sides of things as silver linings and opportunities inside of this?
Well, I think the silver linings and the opportunities really has been able to demonstrate to some of our property managers the importance of that very much personal relationship with the landlord, because for so many years and so many months we'd had a 0% vacancy rate, to now have people shocked and dismayed and have, you know, we've had tenants that just had to leave to get back to overseas, and all of a sudden they've been able to give 2 weeks to vacate. We've got some really distressed Monday investors that we've had to take care of and look after, and those personal relationships are so important, and COVID-19 has presented an opportunity to reinstill in my staff how important those relationships actually are, on a voice to voice and connecting with people on a very real level, because our landlords are losing money, and we had tenants that were very distressed and very worried about getting home. So it became less about the transaction and so much more about the people, and helping guide them through the legislation and guide them through keeping themselves healthy financially and emotionally as well. So yeah, I think the silver lining has reminded us all that we are in a people business, and relationships are so important. And I think in a vibrant, robust, competitive market, you can lose sight of that. And I think Anthony would have knowledge of that, being probably the youngest on the panel. Anthony's born and bred into real estate, but he'd have worked with lots of young, enthusiastic real estate agents that had never encountered a tough market before, and that have perhaps just shown up at an open for inspection and just expected the property to sell without really having to establish deep and meaningful relationships and determining, you know, motivation to sell, why they need to sell, and or why a property hasn't been let or has been let. Anthony, what's your view with some of your young guys? They must have really had some reaction to this significant shift.
I think initially everyone was pretty shell-shocked. You know, we'd come off 2018, 2019, where the banks put us in a bit of strife with how they were lending. So I think that was a really good grounding for the sales team in terms of dealing buyers and trying to get deals together. I think the word about COVID is unprecedented. So this was something that was completely unprecedented, and everyone was freaking out. I guess everyone's looking for leadership. And this is where we are, between Dad and myself, really rolling up our sleeves and sort of speaking to everyone on the team and making sure that we're working through the team, checking in on them, seeing how they're going. Once they knew we cared, I think they care more about the business, and our focus is then making sure that we care about our clients and doing the right thing for them. So for us, then it's sort of stripping back. And I like what Patrick said about getting the database right. We did exactly the same thing as that. We've been doing heaps of training, just like you at O'Brien's, Hutchie. So and I think that's been the brilliant thing about the real estate industry, is so many of the trainers have got together, and there's been so many free webinars, Zoom meetings, and there's sort of been 3 or 4 sessions you can sit through every week. And, with the lack of a lot going on, I think our team really just got into it. And, we will come out the other end of this as a better real estate agency, as a better team. And I think better connections with our database being vendors, definitely landlords. And we're going to work so much better with buyers now because we've had to.
Mm. Any other specific
Absolutely.
silver linings there, Anthony, and other particular positives to come out of this?
I think exactly that. It's sort of, we're quite a young team in terms of experience. So I think, it's almost like you've been able to get 3 years of real estate experience into someone going through this period. So coming out the other side, it's just exciting to see that momentum come back into the business. I've got listings back doing auctions. We went from sort of having 80 people through across our 3 offices just for sales open for inspections a week. We had 350 last weekend. So the numbers are definitely stacking up right. But I think some of the silver linings were particularly in property management. Seeing some of the property managers really step up. Managing 6,000 properties, what we had to manage across quite a large number of people was pretty huge. Our vacancy rate never got higher than 1.6%.
Wow.
It's back down to 1.3% at the moment, considering the Victorian state average is 2.8. And we continued doing things. So we were still doing routine inspections, and we were talking to our PMs that this is an opportunity to clean your portfolio up and be in a position where it's actually easier coming out the other side.
Okay. Jared, can we talk to you about what spring looks like? Is it going to be an early spring? Is it going to be a different spring to what we usually see? Obviously, at Homely, we usually see a fair spike coming out the end of winter into spring with stock. Is that going to happen? Is that going to happen early? Are we moving into the shortest recession on history, or in history, I should say? Or how do you think it looks? How it's going to play out for your business?
I don't know about the recession and the shortest recession in history, but definitely I think we're going to have an early spring. Obviously with mortgages, they're on hold for a period of time. They're starting to come off. So people are starting to make decisions now about what's going to happen in 3 or 4 months' time. We're going to lose JobKeeper, and JobSeeker looks like it's going to be out the window. So we actually think that the market will dip towards spring. And it's always traditionally here in Sydney, I'm pretty sure it's probably in the other states as well. Winter is probably the best time to sell because there's a lack of stock.
Sure.
We're actually seeing people bring it on a little bit earlier now, because you've also got that pressure of what's going to happen come the end of September. So, yeah, we're expecting we're going to be quite busy until that time. Do you think the wider market is more sensitive, or I should say our industry? Do you think we're more sensitive to COVID, or more sensitive because it's winter? Or are we just forgetting usually that sort of feeling that winter comes and there is less stock, or are we oversensitive to the COVID-19 effects of that? I don't think we're oversensitive to it, and it really depends on personal circumstances. We sold a property off market to a young bloke the other day, 25 years old, $525,000 one-bedroom unit in Redfern. His mortgage at 2.19% works out about the interest about $230 a week, and it rents for $450 a week. So what does he care about what COVID is? He's 25 years old. So his circumstances, he's really happy to buy. So, but there's other people, and I suppose it's been the upgraders which have probably been affected more because they don't have to. But anyone with circumstances, kids, new babies arriving, that sort of stuff, they're still out there transacting. So but to answer your question about stock, I think there'll be a lot more coming on a lot quicker, because we don't actually know the full fallout of this as yet. So some people are going to try and take advantage of the marketplace because the prices are still pretty good. And especially in that first home buyer range, for us, less sub $1 million, that's actually quite active. When you get up to the $2 million, that's more of an aspirational change in your circumstances. So that's a little bit tougher. But then again, you see some of the prestige over in the eastern suburbs that 5 million plus, and there's people everywhere wanting to buy that because they're not so affected. Back to your silver linings, it's sort of, I hear what you say about people getting back into the office. We've found, so we actually accelerated a program that we've been working on, which was people working from home, specifically property managers. Moving forward, we're going to have that option again, so that they can still work from home, but they can come to the office if they wanted to. And a silver lining, sick leave in the last 2 months with our staff has been 0.
Wow.
Work from home. So if they feel slightly off, they just work from home and don't put in the sick leave form. So I think, that flexibility is probably a silver lining for us, because you can't tell me that you need to be sitting here in the office to make phone calls about arrears, repairs, work your database. Sure, it's nice having people around, but you can certainly do it from home. So silver lining for us will be the remote workplace or the flexibility of it also.
I think everyone become a lot more outcomes focused, didn't they, as businesses, as opposed to people in the office for the right amount of time. Obviously, we're always productivity focused, but the outcomes, it was all about as people moved back home. Hutchie, how do you see spring and those things we're talking about there?
Well, hopefully it's better than last year. But no, look, I think the problems we're having down south is lack of stock. Huge demand. So there's still huge demand. I mean, if you look at May, I think May was 35 to 40% down, stock volumes down compared to the year before, and it was 30 to 40% down on the year before that. So, from a compounding effect, we've certainly got nowhere near as many properties coming on the market. Over the last 8 to 9 weeks, we've seen the transactional volume across the country's gone up week on week. So, when you're looking at those transactional volumes going up and the stock levels coming down, it's certainly holding prices. We're certainly not seeing any dip in pricing. I tend to agree. That I think June and July will, and into August is the new spring to a point. But I think when you're having those quality conversations with your prospective vendors, the opportunities now for them to come to the market to get a great result. Who knows what's going to happen when JobSeeker and JobKeeper go? I mean, the government's released their unemployment figures, and their predictions have come down. I think they were somewhere around 7.5% is what they're now predicting, as opposed to the 10%. So, I think as a country we've probably been lucky. We've dodged a bullet here compared to the rest of the world. From a financial perspective. Is the recession going to be that long and elongated? Probably not. When you look at our figures compared to the rest of the world, we're in a hell of a lot better spot than them at the moment. So I think we'll have a good spring. I really think we'll have a good spring. If we get a few more coming to the market, there's still plenty of buyers out there.
Some major franchise heads this week have said in the media, this is definitely the time to sell. Get it sold in winter because we're not sure what it's going to look like. Would that be a similar communication, similar advice from you?
Oh, absolutely. We've been saying that since probably April. There's a great opportunity to get in and get a great result. So, our auctions across the weekend, one of them we had 20 bidders. 20 individual bidders on it. So, if you look at it, one person bought that, there's still 9 in the marketplace that are still looking for something. So, it's incredibly buoyant on that side. And the young guy up in Sydney that identified that he could jump into the market and pay $230 a week as opposed to $450 rent. Well, I don't think I've ever seen better times to be dipping my toe in the market. And if you can afford to borrow money, there's no better time. Yeah. No better time to use the bank's money and get into the market and get yourself going.
Are those auction results, are they positive auction results, or are people taking less than what they expected? And are your buyers paying what the value of the property is now, or are they sort of pitching their bidding where they think this is heading?
Oh, they're competitive prices, Dave. We had a couple of auctions the week prior and 2 weeks prior. We've been doing a little thing on a Saturday morning, O'Brien Auction TV, and we've been doing a couple of feature auctions on that. They've been exceeding reserves, and we're certainly not seeing pressure on prices down. If anything, we're probably seeing pressures on good property, as was indicated just before.
So it's actually pulsing right now.
Well, they're selling, and the market's determining where they sell. So, we had one a couple of weeks ago in Huntingdale. Now, Huntingdale doesn't they turn over once every 25 years. Sold for $100K over reserve.
Wow.
So, prices are still good. It's supply and demand. It's common economics. When you've got loads of demand and not a lot of supply, you're going to hold your prices and rates at record low rates. I think we should have a good 6 months.
Brisbane is a little bit different to Sydney and Melbourne. It just seems to not probably suffer the same peaks and troughs. It's a little bit more levelled out. I think you'd agree. What's your forecast, mate, for the next couple of months and into spring?
Similar to the other guys, I think it is a good time. There does seem to be people around now and pretty opportunistic buyers over $2 million. I'd probably find that similar to you guys around that million and unders, I think there's great prices. I don't think anyone's gone backwards at all. And I don't think anyone over 2 million has gone really backward. Maybe there's a little shift that people want to feel like they're getting a deal. But the vendors are pretty happy to do a little bit of a deal because they know they're going to probably be buying in that spring market where probably I think it's the kind of consensus that there probably will be a little bit of stock and hopefully, some deals out there. That's what they're thinking in their minds. So get a deal done now, put the money in the pocket and go shopping in spring. So yeah, we think we're going to have a good couple of months. Next month's, like the listing numbers we got and the sales we've got cooking that'll flow unconditional next month. Next month's going to be huge. We will not be getting JobKeeper, I don't think.
Okay.
Which is a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
So I'm very happy not to get JobKeeper and the business go pumping again. So no,
Yeah.
I think we're going to be in for a couple of cracking months.
Good. Lee, slightly different market there with inner city Melbourne. You already sort of talked about some of the drops there, but through spring?
Through spring, if we're looking at sales, I concur with all of the chaps on the panel here. I think that the sales market and the mortgage and finance rates are so low at the moment. Even some of the stock that we might be having difficulty finding tenants for, we're certainly not having any difficulty finding new landlords coming into the market and new investors coming into the market, where there is a perceived improvement at some point in the not too distant future. So it was a bit of an elastic band response, and sales moving forward with the low levels of stock right throughout Melbourne and Australia. It is basic economics. With low supply and the continued high demand for stock, we will continue to see growth in real estate, and that's without a doubt.
Good. Anthony, some final comments from you, mate?
I concur with everyone else from a sales point of view. I think leading up to September, I think it's going to be interesting. I think the really interesting part as we get to September is actually going to be in property management. When JobKeeper goes, what's that actually going to do to jobs, particularly down here in Melbourne? We don't know where we're going to be. We're sort of already looking at perhaps having to renegotiate some of our rents, and those hardship periods are going to be finishing at that time as well. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge I can see sort of coming up in front of us. Sales are ticking along. We've got some good momentum, and there is that lack of stock, so there's good prices. But I think it's just going to be interesting to see what happens in the property management space once some of these things ease up in terms, like I said, in terms of JobKeeper, and see what that actually means for people who are renting.
Yeah. Terrific, guys. Thank you so much for giving us a bit of time today. We'll wrap it up there. I've got a couple of neat takeaways there. I think all of you very specifically talked about the human interaction and that involvement, belly to belly, shoulder to shoulder with your buyers and also your vendors. The cleaning up the database, just an opportunity there has been, and obviously moving forward to maintain a very cleansed database and quality information. And the third one there, credit to Hutchie, was vitamin C, Vitamin Connect, mate. So I'll be using that somewhere else, I can assure you.
Can I just say one thing before I go?
Yes.
A big congratulations to Jason and Adam on their vision of Homely and what they've been able to achieve in getting over 400 investors. So well done. It's good to see them having a go and shaking the industry up a bit. So well done, boys.
Is, mate. And a lovely segue into my final comment there. Jump on Elite Agent today and check out that article there. We've named a lot of our homely.com.au partners today. It's an exciting day for us, and as I said, an enormous positive response, not only from you guys who are our partners, but also people looking to partner with us in the future. Guys, thank you so much. Hopefully we can maybe even do this again, maybe spring or even just into summer, and just see your reflections then. But we do really appreciate your insights and the information that you provide today. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys. Cheers.
Bye.